Welcome to Brain Wellness, the podcast. I'm your host, Mandy NP. Each episode will bring you a new topic or interview related to brain health and wellness as part of my mission to help you on the path to a healthier, happier brain. So, let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Brain Wellness, the podcast. My guest today is Manohar, who is from Hyderabad, India. He has been working in the software industry for the last 15 years, hobbies including reading books and watching movies. In 2019, he struggled with insomnia and was living in desperation to sleep. He had consultations with psychologists who helped to a certain extent, but because he was desperate to fix the problem, he was put on anti-anxiety pills. While researching, he learned about the practice of meditation. He was expecting instant results with meditation too, but unfortunately, that was not the case. He did stick with it, and with time, his anxiety reduced, and he had no problem sleeping. He has written a book about his journey called My Sleepless Nights, which is available on Amazon. He has a total of 3 books available on Amazon. After overcoming his issues with sleep, he helps people make the transition from anxious, sleepless nights to peaceful, sleeping nights. Welcome, Manohar.
Thank you, Mandy, for inviting me, and I hope we'll have a great time.
I'm sure we will. I always ask first off, just to know a little bit about your story. You shared a little bit in your introduction, but what got you really interested in this?
Okay, so as often it's said, the mess in our life becomes the message that we give to them.
Mhm.
So you read in the description in the introduction, right? So
Mhm.
I struggled with sleep. With so I would say like I was just like any other person was wanting an instant quick result,
Mhm.
right? So and that is where actually I was searching into. Yeah, I would say like maybe in 2019 the internet was not as big, but definitely YouTube was there. There were a lot of blog articles and a lot of things were there. So I would only say that with data becoming more and more available, it's going to be even more difficult because picking the right one that works for you, because the thing is there's no universal solution. So what works for Mandy need not work for Manohar, and what works for Manohar need not even work for Mandy. So because there is no going to be two different people, right? So that is, so what I have really noticed is I've seen so many people on the same journey as me who are struggling, and then they think that some kind of fix or some kind of a hack will solve their problem, but that's not. Unfortunately, I would definitely say that that's not going to happen, because the thing is, the brain, the way it works is when it goes the path of anxiety, right? So it doesn't immediately put that switch, like instead of the fight or flight mode, go into the rest or digest mode. It doesn't do that. We need to take some effort. And since Mandy, you are someone from the NLP, right? So you understand it a lot, which is like the brain has to. You need to train the brain so to understand that the things that are really bothering. And from what I understand is the brain really doesn't understand what's the difference between a real pain versus an imaginary pain, right? It treats the real pain and the imaginary pain exactly the same way. And that is where is the big problem, I feel. And the beauty about it is it doesn't matter how old you are, how many years you have struggled. Through the beautiful concept of neuroplasticity, you can retrain your brain.
Absolutely. I think you kind of nailed it right on the head that people are always looking for that quick fix and what will help me now. But absolutely, what works for one person may not work for another. So there's not one thing that is a one size fits all for everyone. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. How long had you had troubles with sleep before this? Was it just a sudden change or years in the making?
Okay, so this is a tricky question to say. The reason is like like you said, or I mentioned in the opening
Mhm.
part, So, for example, let's say that you and I start learning driving a car, right? You may learn it in just 2 days, whereas I may struggle for more than 2 months, right? So the problem with this answer is when I give an answer with a certain time frame, people just think that this is the time frame, but it could be this or it could be this also,
Mhm.
right? It could be this for someone, right? So to answer your question, I struggled. So since my teenage years, I had this on and off kind of a thing. But the core struggle lasted for more than 6 months, I would say.
Mhm.
And like I said, so it was not an uh, thing like a switch, which is like a flip of a button. So
Mhm.
it took its own time. And
Mhm.
in spite, I would even say like there are nights where I struggle to sleep even now. And I agree that it's part of life. So life is not going to be a straight line curve. So life will always throw us some or the other surprises which we have to deal with. And only once you are equipped with the right set of tools and the right support system, that is when you will see the change.
Absolutely. I know that time question can be hard sometimes, especially if it's on and off. It's not a constant thing from one end to another. But true, when even after you fix something, you can have nights where, with any health issue, you can have days or nights where you have that issue again, but it's not as chronic, it's not as severe as it was in the past. So that's a good thing. In my practice, I've taken care of a lot of patients who came in actually with concerns of memory troubles, and it turned out that they couldn't sleep. Were you noticing any troubles with your memory, or did you find that in any of your research as well?
Uh, yeah, yes and no, also to a certain extent. Uh, yeah, so irrespective of whether the thing is, our brain, though it is having this issue, it tries to manage with whatever resources it can. So the brain is something called as an optimization machine. It tries everything that is possible to optimize these things. So, for example, you could seriously cut down on sleep for a few days and still be functioning normally. So it doesn't. You will not even notice the side effects of it. But uh, as um, as we understand, right? So just like we have something called as the short-term working memory and a long-term working memory. So the beauty about it is, for example, right now you and I are having conversation, right? You're seeing me, you're asking me these questions. So these things all go into the short-term working memory. So I'm just putting this left hand as a short-term working memory and the right hand as a long-term working memory, which is a bigger size. So for example, if you find something valuable in this, in our conversation, right? When you sleep, the information goes into the long-term working memory. But if you think that it's not that important, so how you logged in, what time you logged into the machine, when did you start the recording? It's not that important. It's not the life or death question. So the brain will just discard this information, right? So what happens is when you sleep, this thing of the brain is doing the consolidation. What is important? What is not important for you to survive, right? So that is what's going to happen. So for a few days, right, nothing will happen. So nothing great will happen. But if you make it a habit of, uh, so like we live in an era where there are so many distractions, right? And especially to sleep. And there's a very famous quote by the I think an ex-chairman or the CEO of Netflix who said that, "Are you afraid of the next OTT?" So he said that I'm afraid of one of the most biological need of humans, which is to sleep. Sleep is the number one enemy of these things, right? So that is the something which happens. So if you constantly sleep deprive yourself, the thing which I talked about, going into the long-term working memory and removing the information which is not there, right? That goes for a toss. And so as they say, things are not immediately evident. So it's something like this. So when you start smoking, the first or the second cigar or the third cigar really doesn't give you, but it compounds over a long time, and then you start seeing the effects of bad health. So that is something which I feel.
Right, that's a good example actually, because it doesn't affect you immediately. So a lot of people will say, "Oh, I can do this for a long time, and it's not going to cause a problem." But it's that cumulative effect that kicks in, and causes those issues later on. Good point on that. How did you come to find that meditation was helpful?
Okay, so to be honest, like I started in the month of March, I stumbled across breath meditation. From breath meditation, I went to chanting meditation, to another form of meditation, to another form of meditation. So I kept just hopping around, looking for that instant solution, which will just, I was thinking like, I'll just meditate. And if I go to sleep, that's it. I'll just fall asleep just in a flash or something like that. But that was not the case. Though initially I saw something good, right, but that was not the case. So then like I said, I had this consultation with my psychologist clearly observed that I was living in FOMO, which is fear of missing out, right? And then he told me one thing, which is like, to break the old pattern, which we briefly touched upon with the thing, you need to make the new pattern which you're starting be very small. Okay, so this is the core concept of the beautiful book called Atomic Habits, which is to start small and then just compound it. So if you just start small, so I just started with just a 3 minute meditation. So guided meditation, I used to listen. Okay, so I made it for 1 week. I made it a point that I stuck to that 3 minute of meditation, and then I slowly increased it to 5 minutes of meditation, then to 8 minutes, then to 12 minutes, and then to 20 minutes. And what I did was 20 minutes before going to the bed, fixed my time that this is the time where I meditate, and then I just go to sleep. So it's not that the 20 minutes just gave me that instant sleep, but what it did is it started training my mind that you need not you can put that imaginary dangers out of sight, and slowly you can relax yourself. And that is when, once you start relaxing yourself, the probability that you sleep, right, that increases a lot.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, it's not going to fix overnight, just like the problem didn't get created overnight. So building those
Yes.
good habits, absolutely. And I know I've read different research on how long it can take to build a habit, up to 3 weeks. So doing it once is not going to fix the problem. You have to continue with it. So I'm glad that you found that. Was it different recordings or an app on your phone? I know they make so many different apps on phones now that can lead you into meditation.
Mhm. Yeah, I used to listen to guided meditations on an app called Udemy. So Udemy is you would say something like an Amazon, but there are video courses on that. So I used to listen to guided meditations on Udemy. But yeah, like you said, the 3 weeks thing, right? So
Mhm.
the core thing is, I feel the problem was when I initially started, right? I did maybe for 10 days, and I thought it's not working for me, or I expected that things will start showing those results, but it's not a linear curve, but it's an exponential curve. The starting point is going to be the starting change is going to be very small, which you don't even notice, right? And even till the inflection point. So inflection point is the point where it just changes, the curve changes the trajectory. Even till there, you feel that nothing is happening actually, but when it hits that inflection point, it's a very steep curve. So that's the beauty of any habit. It need not be meditation, it could be with any small thing. You start to jog, you start to sing, you start to do anything. The initial part, you don't see anything. You almost feel like nothing's happening. Why am I doing this? But
Mhm.
so like you said, like the 20 or 21 days, right? Till the 20 or the 19 days, nothing really happens. But in the 19, 20 or 21 days, so but yeah, the thing is, everyone says that the 3 weeks, right? So it's just a sample that has been done on maybe like 1,000 or at max 10,000, right? So you can't extrapolate everything into every person.
Mhm.
So it could even take, for example, for someone, it could even take 2 months also. So you can't really say like three. I tried 3 weeks. Why am I not getting a result?
Yeah.
But
Yep.
the inflection point, till the inflection point is where you need to hold your patience, be patient with it, and that is when, once the inflection point changes, right? So it's going to be a very steep curve which you can't even imagine.
Mhm. Yeah. And that's a good point too. That 3 weeks it's not a magical number. It's not going to say that this is going to work for you. But the point is that you can't stop at like day 10, like you mentioned. You have to continue going because it's not going to be that overnight fix. It takes time. Um, and everybody's going to have something different. Everyone's going to have a different time frame. As you were going through your journey, was there any, and you're trying all these different things, was there one thing that was the most important thing for you to realize or learn?
The one thing which I realized and learned is we I mean it's generally the human nature. The way it is our human brain actually is basically the way we evolved is we were always in constant lookout for danger.
Mhm.
So and we always thought and made up scenarios where we could protect ourselves, right? So because of that, the brain is either in the past or in the future. It's never in the present moment, right here, right now. So that is, so when you are, so I'm not saying that you should always live in the present moment and never introspect or never plan for the future. But so instead of spending the 90% of time either in the past or in the present, let's spend time in the present moment, which is the right here, right now moment. That makes a lot of difference. When you are in the present moment, right here, right now, right? The brain, which is, there is a part in our brain which is called as amygdala, which is responsible for checking for any dangers, right? So it will just be quiet. It will be quiet. And that is when the brain can process a lot of things. It can understand that some things are just cooked up stories, some things are real, which we have to work. Some things which are cooked up can be just discarded. And instead of activating our fight or flight response, so what happens is if it's a real cooked up story, the amygdala gets activated, and instead of uh, it activates our fight or flight response. Our heart rate is increased, our blood flow starts increasing, and all of those things happen. And it's going to be an even more faster thing. The more you spend time in this fight or flight response, right, the harder it's going to be to sleep. That is something which I learned. And this can happen when you are able to live in the present moment. So this living in the present moment makes a lot of difference, is what I learned.
And so that's where the meditation came in. That helps you
Yes.
to stay grounded right now. Yeah, that's a good idea. And that's so true about when you have that more of the fight or flights, you have more trouble sleeping, but then it becomes a vicious cycle because the more you have trouble sleeping, the more time you're going to spend in that fight or flight mode. So you have to find something that's going to cut that off at the knees. So that meditation is a great way to do it. There again, different things will work for different people, but I love the idea of living in the now because that's you really need to ground yourself to notice what's real right now and what's not. Um, Good example, kind of off the subject, but I had a brain injury last year, and it took a long time to try to recover from it. And it wasn't until I was able to accept where I was right now that I started growing in leaps and bounds and showing my improvements. So that acceptance piece, that living in the now, is so important for any issue that can affect your brain. Sleep being probably our number one thing that we all need. As you mentioned, that's where your memories get stored. That's where our brain heals from dangers. So without that, we can't do healing from any problem.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think this is a really important conversation to have for anybody that might be having trouble with sleep. So um, good information. So you've written 3 books, one of them
Mhm.
on sleep. Do you have any other projects or events that you're working on that you want to share with our listeners?
Yeah. So actually, I'm coming up with a webinar. Like since I talked about this concept where many people struggle with sleep, and yeah. So the beauty about sleep is very simple. Everybody sleeps, but at the same time, because of so much of information that is available everywhere for free, right? So it's very easy to get confused.
Mhm.
So for that reason, I'm coming up in the month of April, May, and June. I'm coming up with a workshop kind of a thing, which may be for something like a 1 hour, which is going to be free, which I'll be sharing on my social media. And definitely, if you follow me on my social media, you'll get to know about it. But this is something which I'm planning. uh, in the next quarter.
Excellent. And you are located in India, so have it being a webinar online, anyone anywhere in the world can access it.
Yes, of course.
That's a
Yes.
great thing too. Awesome. So you mentioned your social medias. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about this?
Okay, so one thing I would definitely recommend is visiting my website, which is manohargrandhi.com, which comes with my name, manohargrandhi.com. And yeah, you can find me, read about my book on Amazon. My book is called My Sleepless Nights: A Story of Victory Over Insomnia.
Mhm.
Yeah, and of course, like with every other people, I'm guilty to be on every social media. So you can find me with my name. You will definitely find me. Yeah.
Awesome. And I will include all of those links in the show notes as well, so people can click on it and find you easily. Some people are listening while they're driving in the car, and it's not a good idea to write things down at that point. So very good.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
any, we've talked about so much already on this show. Anything else that you wanted to share with our listeners or any last thoughts?
Okay. As last thoughts, actually, I want to share this thing which I guess I read somewhere. I forgot it. This is actually called as because we are talking on mental health, right? I want to talk about a very important concept called as the marshmallow experiment. I think this was done sometime in 1960s or 70s. Basically, what this experiment was done was through for a kid. They were in the age group of 6 to 8. Experimenters just they called random kids to a room, and then they placed a marshmallow. So for people who don't know what's marshmallow, marshmallow is kind of a candy, which is very yummy to eat. Kids really love it. Okay, the experimenter told one condition. So they told that we'll come back after 15 minutes and we'll give you another marshmallow. Okay, so that's the only thing, and then they left. Okay, some kids immediately saw the marshmallow and then they just unwrapped it and then they ate it. But some kids were able to withstand, hold their temptation for some time, and then they ate it for 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, and then the experimenter came. So you think that the experiment is done right now. So fast forward for 2 decades later, what they observed was people who were able to resist the temptation of doing eating this faster, right? They were way successful in their marriages, way successful in their jobs, way successful in their businesses, way successful in whatever field you think. So this is actually this thing is called as delayed gratification, which is like you don't fall for the instant thing. So we live in this era where there are so many things where you can fall for the instant gratification, the Instagram reels, to the YouTube shorts, to the TikToks, and you name it, you will find it. Okay, so we get this thing. So this is the way of our brain giving dopamine, and in fact it's also called as cheap dopamine. So you get it very cheaply. So you need to learn to delay your gratification. Yeah, I know it's not going to be easy, uh, but like I told, right, with the concept of neuroplasticity, you can train your brain to delay the gratification, and the power of delayed gratification is really huge. So people who are able to delay gratification, I mean, you could read about this thing called as marshmallow experiment. It's an amazing thing, and if you are able to delay your gratification, all your challenges, be it your anxiety, your insomnia, and to anything which you are facing, right, you will be able to live in the present moment. You will be able to enjoy life much better, and you will definitely it's not the number of years you live, but you will live each year time with presence. So that matters a lot. So I would like to end with this thing, like you need to learn to delay your gratification.
Yeah, that's a great point. It kind of gets back to what we were talking about earlier, but you can't get that instant thing when you're looking for relief as well. And it's funny that you mentioned that marshmallow experiment, because on social media there have been a lot of different versions of that. People will put an M&M or something, some piece of candy in front of the child, walk away for 5 minutes and tell them, if you wait until I get back, I'll give you more. And it's interesting that they followed them to show that they were more successful if they were able to wait and get that delayed gratification. Thank you for sharing that. Very good information. Yeah. Thank you, Manohar, for being here today.
Yeah, thank you, Mandy, for having me on the show, and I had great time enjoying interacting, and I enjoyed this interaction.
Me as well. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Brain Wellness, the podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I encourage you to subscribe, like, and share this with others to help me continue on with my mission to help people live healthier, happier lives. Go to www.brainwellnesssolutions.com to see what I'm up to and get links to all the social medias there. See you next time.